Good morning, Mr. Patil. Good morning. So happy to see you. I hope you had a very nice Sunday yesterday, and that your Monday proves to be even better. Happy Monday is what I'll say to you. And now we're live on LinkedIn, on YouTube. I've sent it to my folks on WhatsApp. Started reading Shoe Dog. Oh my god, so beautiful. So nice. So, which page could you reach as of now? I mean, where are you with the book? How much could you read in just one day? I am at 1965 here now. He has sent his samples to his coach. Oh, you've read a lot. You've actually read a lot in just one day. That's beautiful. Please let me know how you find that book. I would really be looking forward to what you have to say. Uh, you know, and I'll be very happy to hear exactly what you feel by the end of the whole story. So it's one of the most well written memoir and business books, biographies, stories at once. So, should we begin? It's 8:04. People have started joining in, and I think we should begin, right? So, folks on LinkedIn, if you can hear me, you can say something. If there's some problem with the audio, could just let me know, and then we will begin the show that we deserve. Okay. Okay. So, I guess I'm audible on. Uh, Very nice. Beautiful. The LinkedIn audio is great. The YouTube audio is also great. So let's begin. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Ba 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 ba. Bum 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 bum. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Things just got a whole lot better, ladies and gentlemen, because now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! Oh, but before we go, we've got to follow a tradition, right? You know the tradition? The sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a cup or mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen, jug, or flask, or a vessel of any kind. pour it with your favorite liquid. Today I'm having hot water with some black pepper in it. It's supposed to be very good for me, and it is good for me. I feel really good after having it. And here we go. Oh my god, healing. Let's do it again. Beautiful. Sublime. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? The simultaneous sip says that you're not alone, that we are in this together. And that's such a nice thing to say, right? Such a beautiful thing to say. You're not lonely anymore. With that out of the way, let's begin. There's a very big research which says that coffee is very good for your liver. So if you drink like a black coffee every day, it has some sort of healing tendencies as far as liver is considered. Now, alcohol is said to be very bad for liver, right? It's poison for liver. So let's say if you drink alcohol and then you drink coffee, would it balance what your liver goes through? So can coffee balance the alcohol bad effects of alcohol? I'll never take that kind of health advice. It was just a joke. But yeah, it's no joke that coffee is actually good for liver, right? So that bit is true. However, don't try to balance your alcohol with coffee. It might not help as you think it would. Moving on, EU has delayed the retaliatory tariffs as far as US is considered till August. So EU is trying to cut a deal. Just yesterday, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember, we discussed how US had given like a 30% bill to Mexico and EU from August because it said Mexico isn't doing enough for the fentanyl problem and EU has also not moved forward. So EU was first thinking that let's put pressure on US by bringing retaliatory tariffs. But that's not happening. EU is actually trying to balance the situation. They are trying to negotiate better so that this tariff from August goes away. So everybody who said that this wouldn't work, this tariff play wouldn't work, is starting to look bad right now. They're starting. So if you read like any newspaper from a year ago, okay, any economist talking a year ago or even month ago, they were always vehemently against tariffs. They said these tariffs are not gonna work and they're gonna hurt US and they're gonna hurt the global economy and so on and so forth. However, now the things are starting to change. Now the tune is starting to change as far as tariffs are considered. Now people are realizing that tariffs might just not be as bad as they thought they would be, because US stock market is up, US inflation is down, US earning reports are okay, US employment reports are okay. So it's all looking good right now when every economist said it wouldn't. So it's right now one Mr. Trump, two economists. Now, this particular deal about how tariffs have, moved forward just works on a very simple principle, like how houses work or how companies work, and then how governments work, local governments work, and then how national government works, and then how geopolitics works. So until now, people used to think that how geopolitics work is fundamentally different from how, let's say, a company would work, or let's say how a local government would work, right? It would be very different because you need some sort of babu shahi, you need some sort of bureaucratic red tape, you need some structure and order, and you need some sort of refinement in communication. Now it turns out that is not the case, you know. It's how two people fight, right? It's how two people fight. So let's say two shopkeepers in the same market, one guy figures out that this guy is selling at a lower cost, you know, and what do you do then? You sell at a lower cost, right? But if you figure out that this guy is getting supplies from somewhere which is selling him at a lower cost, you either try to block that supply, or you try to get that supply yourself, right? Something similar is happening as far as the whole tariff situation is considered. Now US figured out that everybody, it has a trade deficit with everybody, and the way to deal with that trade deficit, which is leading to killing of its own industries. So let's say if they start importing stuff from China, right? We've discussed this a lot, but I'm just giving a refresher so that people get the perspective, the new joiners, right? So if a lot of stuff stops starts coming from China, what happens to US factories and US companies is that they just die, right? Now China devalues its currency. Let's say China brings its currency value down. All right? Now what happens? Its imports become expensive, but its exports become cheap, right? So its exports become cheap to the foreign nation. Their industry, their factories go out of business, right? Because they can't compete at those levels. Now, if a lot of factories and companies start shutting down because of a heightened competition from China, only two things can happen. Like, number one, you just let it happen, okay? Or number two, you try and support those local companies, local factories, local shops, let's say, right? Now, how can you support those shops? How can you help those shops? You help them by either incentivizing their production, even giving them some sort of incentives like Indian PLI or ELI or whatever, that no, we are going to pitch in, you won't make losses, we're going to pitch in. Or you could just block the foreign nation supply. Because if you block the foreign nation supply, your guys might just have a fighting chance. That's the basic principle on which Mr. Trump is working, right? Increase the tariffs so that things that come from outside become expensive. When they become expensive, people inside will start making those stuff, matching that price, and all that money will stay in America, you know? So, economists were very against it for a lot of reasons, but mostly self-serving, right? Because they claim to have a lot of intellectual theories on why tariffs wouldn't work. However, a local economy, which is not that global economy, okay? If you go local than global, things start getting complicated for these guys as well, right? The think tanks and so on and so forth, their funding gets stopped. But anyway, they were very against it. They said this would crash, that would crash, this would happen, that would happen. However, it seems like their case was that you just maintain the status quo. Don't rock the boat, is what they were saying. That don't rock the boat, just keep the boat intact and things will be okay, right? They didn't want any radical change to happen. They wanted business as usual. But Mr. Trump, what he said was business as usual isn't good business. And so everything is starting to align right now. Tariffs have proved to be a national security tool because, when you tariff Canada and Mexico and say that you're not stopping our fentanyl supply, you're not stopping the fentanyl smuggling, that's why we are tariffing you. So they stop those bad drugs supply to America. That's a national security reason for implementing tariffs. Let's say if they put tariffs on Vietnam and China, where they say, we are putting tariffs on you because you are killing our industry. That's an economic, factor for which tariffs are working. So you have tariffs being used for economics, tariffs being used for national security, tariffs being used for everything, right? And they are working. So just now, there's another news very related. It's about how US has started thinking of a tariff as far as copper is considered, like a 50% tariff on copper. Now, why tariff on copper? Because US imports copper, and copper is a critical element in the semiconductor manufacturing play. And if US is dependent on copper, because when copper started flooding in from all sorts of places, US copper manufacturing doesn't happen, right? And that means that these people will be dependent on outside supplies for copper. And semiconductors are important in drones, in weapons, in semiconductor chips, the electronics, and so on and so forth. You can't be dependent. So they put tariffs on copper. That means the supply chain will get shocked, right? People who were supplying to US, they won't be able to do that. Now Indian semiconductor mission is looking at a trouble situation because of the tariffs being put on uh, by US copper supplies. So how interesting is that, right? These things are very related, and these things influence a lot of conversations. But all of those conversations are turning in favor of Mr. Trump now. How interesting is that? So does it mean that all the economists were wrong, or are they just early? Are we actually looking at a crisis which will happen sometime soon? We never know. We never know. Let's see. Let's see. Though I don't think I'll be rooting for Mr. Trump here, just to be clear. I don't believe that a country shouldn't protect its domestic industries. Yeah, it was called protectionism. The globalists said it was bad, but it's not bad. It's not bad. It's not bad for the guy whose factory shut down because of cheaper imports from China, right? That's reason enough. That's reason enough. Anyway, moving on. Uh, we won't talk about the Epstein scenario because it's negative, right? And I have been advised by viewers of Thinkers Frequency to not begin the morning with sad news. However, uh, that is a big bone of contention as far as Mr. Musk and Mr. Trump is considered. Mr. Musk says release the Epstein files, and Mr. Trump has basically buried the Epstein files. Now, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember that the whole Epstein case was just shut down inadvertently, abruptly, and everybody was like, what the hell happened? This is the cover up of all cover ups. This is the longest, biggest cover ups ever, right? This is wrong. And Mr. Trump wrote a 400-word post on Truth, and he said, you know, forget about Epstein, we are together, Epstein is not important, and so on and so forth. And everybody's like, what? 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 Epstein is not important? It was one of the very, very big things of the campaign promises. But it seems like all the conspiracy theorists were actually onto something when they conflated the Epstein scandal with very, very big outcomes. They said that this scandal can actually topple governments. This scandal can actually, it has a lot of ramifications, right? And maybe it's because of those ramifications that Team Trump has essentially chosen to put a lid on the whole Epstein thing. But it's not flying well with the original, uh, you know, base and Mr. Musk. So this is heightening the tensions with Mr. Musk because he called a lot of people Epstein pedos, including the founder of LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman. So uh, a lot of economic fallouts of this are going to happen in times to come. Just wait and watch. Moving on, global uncertainty hurting growth but not losing market share, says TCS. So TCS is under fire. Now, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember TCS revenue declined 3.1%, even though the net profit grew on the back of efficiencies. Its revenues declined, which led to a lot of people thinking, oh, what's going on? But not the viewers of Thinkers Frequency, right? Because viewers of Thinkers Frequency already know exactly what has been going on and what is going to go on as far as Indian IT is considered. You know that, right? We've talked a lot about it. We know about it. Indian IT is going to be in big trouble. It is already in trouble, but those troubles are only going to get heightened in times to come, which is obviously not a good news. So the chief of TCS right now, Mr. K. Kritivasan, is actually trying to fight the fire amongst the public investor market, analyst market, and he says that we ought to be looked at differently. So let's see how that goes. Speaking of how that goes, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember we talked about PLIs, right? The incentives. One of those PLIs was FAME. If you remember, we talked about FAME, the PLI scheme for electric vehicle manufacturing. Now, electric vehicle manufacturing FAME essentially uh, had some scam going on. Now, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember that Indian players, the erstwhile market leaders in the two-wheeler electric market, they were essentially just importing Chinese parts and taking the PLI subsidies, the FAME subsidies, which were intended to spur domestic production, right? So, Indian government cancelled their FAME subsidies, started talking about taking their money back, and so on and so forth. Now, those people have really gotten hurt, small bike operators. Now, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know that earlier electric bike market was ruled by two players, Hero Electric and Okinawa. Okay. Now, both of those players, along with Crompton Greaves, right? Now, these people have really been wiped off very, very badly. So, Okinawa used to sell 31,000 bikes in a year, okay, annual sales. To in the first half of 2025, it has sold only 1,400 bikes. So basically, annualized, they're going to sell 2,800 bikes in this year when they used to sell 31,000 2 years ago. From 31,000, they come back to 4,800 to now 2,800. So Okinawa really fell. Hero Electric is even sadder. It sold 29,000, almost 30,000 vehicles 2 years ago, which is down to 382 vehicles in the first half of this year. So 2 years, 30,000 ago, 2 years ago, 30,000. Now they're going to be selling like 700, 800 vehicles. So they are done, unfortunately. Very, very sad. It's no good news that small players couldn't succeed. Greaves Electric is also declining. Crompton Greaves, the they are a manufacturer of Crompton Greaves. You must know it's a pretty popular brand for electronics and consumer goods, heavy consumer goods. Uh, they used to sell like 67,000 bikes. Now they are essentially at 26,000. Might just be able to sell 50,000, 40,000. Now, a lot of people get confused as far as Hero Electric. Like, hey Nishant, how did you call Hero Electric a small company? What are you smoking? We want that kind of stuff, right? But those would be new viewers of Thinkers Frequency. Old viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know that uh, Hero Electric is not Hero Motorcorp. Okay, Hero Motorcorp is the main Hero company, which is being run by Mr. Pavankant Munjal, right? And Hero Electric is a smaller family, a different family of the Munjal group, which started Hero Electric. So I don't remember the founder's name, but they are a very small family and they started Hero Electric like 10 years ago when Hero Motorcorp wasn't into e-vehicles. So these people saw the market early, tried their best, but are now gonna get wiped off, right? But that is not the Hero that you know. Hero Motorcorp, Hero Cycles, they are very different. So Hero Cycles is OP Munjal Group. OP Munjal, Mr. OP Munjal Group is Hero Cycles, which is okay, which is doing well. Hero Motorcorp is Pavankant Munjal Group, which is obviously the biggest Hero company. And Hero Electric is a small, different family. Okay? So a lot of confusion as far as the Hero conglomerate is considered. But I just told you, now you have no doubts. So Hero Electric is basically going to be out of the market. And so are all small players. I'm really sad for Okinawa though, you know, because they worked hard, they saw the market early, they tried their best, they ran the business in a very conventional, very bootstrapped, hard working kind of a way, and even then they got screwed up. It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart, but what do we do? Very difficult play. Moving on, nuclear law recast is expected to happen. Basically, supplier liability norms are going to be relaxed. So, what did we talk about? Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember how we talked about nuclear energy as the new frontier. And why do we need nuclear energy? Do you remember? Why do we need nuclear energy? Why are we suddenly focused about nuclear energy in that way? Uh, Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know that with the advent of AI and new technologies, you know, a real upward swing is happening as far as energy requirement is considered, right? Now, there's only so much crude that you can borrow, or let's say import, and there's only so much of solar that you can grow. There's a limit to how these things can scale, right? But nuclear is largely an untapped opportunity, and it's green, and it's clean, and it's extremely effective. So, but nuclear has been lying dormant as far as India is considered. Especially there is in the private play, because there is no private play. It was very sensitive earlier, and then there was something called a supplier liability. Let's say Bhopal gas tragedy happened, right? So if something wrong happened as far as nuclear is considered, they could have unlimited liability according to the clause. Now the government is trying to bring in nuclear private players, and then they're removing that unlimited liability clause to be able to attract that play. Because would you invest in a nuclear plant if the law says that something wrong happens and you are liable to be pay unlimited liabilities? Of course not, right? Of course not. So that is cooling down. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would also know something that I said about the whole energy requirement bit. So would you remember what I talked about as far as the energy requirement situation is? So right now there's an extremely fast growing demand of energy. Okay, why? Because of the AI chips and AI play, and let's say blockchain play, and so on and so forth. These things are leading to an unprecedented rise in energy demand, which is leading to an unprecedented rise in energy supply, right? Nuclear getting unlocked, solar growing, so on. What's going to happen very soon is that this AI energy demand will start dropping down because of advancement in AI technology, chip technology, because these chips will keep getting more efficient in times to come. So what is probably a real possibility, what's a real possibility is that in some time you will see that this particular AI energy demand shortens. It shrinks suddenly because chips start getting more efficient in times to come. And when that happens, you will see that the energy surplus is just extraordinary, because you raise the energy supply and then the demand will suddenly collapse. And that's a real possibility, by the way. I did some math. And when that happens, energy will be cheap. And when that happens, if energy cheapens, inflation goes way down, consumption goes up. So if that happens somehow in any country or in any economy, suddenly you'll see an upward rise as far as that economy is considered. And that economy could be any economy. So you never know. Right now, US is going heavy on nuclear. Maybe China is there. Maybe India catches up. Whoever cracks this might just be looking at like some real crazy outcomes, right? And that this is not very long term, like 10, 15 years or 20 years or something of that sort. This is like next 5, 7 years. Yeah. Moving on. IT refunds are rise 6x in 11 years, surpass FY25 gross target direct tax mop up. So refunds are rising, and the government is claiming the rightful credit that look, we are reducing the turnaround time as far as refunds are considered, and all of these things are going to be, this is going to lead to a lot of free cash flow because income tax returns, uh, you know uh, the they basically give, they're very good news, right? So when that happens, uh, a lot of economic activity is expected to get spurred, and when that happens, it's basically good news. So government is claiming credit that look how this particular thing is moving on, and we should be all proud. Speaking of something that to be proud of, or let's say to be scared of, uh, you know Indian Foreign Minister Sir Jaishankar, uh, he's going to be meeting the China. You know, he's basically going to China, and this is going to be the first trip since the Galwan clash. He's going to be meeting Mr. Wang, and this is going to be a very very important crucial meeting because there are a lot of things at play right now. One is the LAC, of course, which we all know about, right? One is the rare earth mineral situation. One is the fertilizer situation. Now, viewers of Thinkers Frequency know about the rare earth mineral situation, so I'm not going to repeat it. But we ought to know about the fertilizer situation as well because I talked about it. We talked about it. But there's the Dalai Lama situation. There's the Pakistan situation. There's basically the Northeast situation, right? Bangladesh situation. So these things are very, very complicated, and China is essentially causing this particular Bangladesh, Pakistan, China alliance, which is just a security threat and also an economic threat, by the way, very serious economic threat. So this is going to be a very critical meeting, and what comes out of it will decide a lot of things as far as Indian defense sector is considered, Indian electronic sector is considered, and a lot of other sectors is considered. Speaking of sectors, fertilizer market, India has already essentially moved forward with a West Asian deal, Saudi Arabia deal for fertilizers. So viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know after blocking rare earth minerals, uh, China blocked fertilizers. Now that caused a real threat to the whole agri situation of the country, but they got the other supplies. We talked about how India would be looking at Russia, would be looking at West Asia and other places for fertilizer. Yeah, they looked at West Asia and they're looking at getting it done. So that's that. A lot of, if you think about these things, uh, like such, as we always say, right? A lot of these business outcomes are all politics. Let's say if you were starting a semiconductor manufacturing unit in Assam or Northeast, right? Which you are. So Tata is setting up a plant there, and then China is looking at a new Northeast insurgency plan where they're gonna lead to some terrorist outcomes and insurgent fights and so on and so forth. What do you do as a business, right? It's not your fault, it's not your doing, and then you get screwed. You put in all that money, and then suddenly people are fighting because the foreign adversarial country has essentially lit a fire. So a lot of very very interesting things to be happening. Moving on, a lot of political chit chatter which we won't discuss because we don't discuss politics. How do you like that we don't discuss politics? Should we discuss politics as well? Do you think we should be discussing politics? I try to be away from politics because politics is dirty, and politics leads to allegiance of some sort. So the moment we start talking about politics, it will be an interesting conversation. It'll be getting heated up. However, people will color me as a political guy. I don't want to be a political guy, right? And you wouldn't want to be a political guy. So we'll all start looking ourselves in a political color, right? We wouldn't want to do that. Let's just discuss business and finance and economics and discuss the political ramifications, right? Discuss politics shall just be in business context. You're right. And Mr. Tiwari, you're totally right. Just talk in business context. And Mr. Patil, as we have limited time, correct? Because we only have time till 8 to 9. So there's only so much we can pack as far as this is considered. Speaking of packing, phone makers are scared. You know why phone makers are scared? Indian phone makers are scared. Now, obviously, we know about the Indian phone market's stagnation. Let's say 150 million, not selling more phones, phone market not growing. That's okay. But the bigger problem is that India is stopping the PLI scheme now. India had a PLI scheme starting in 2017. So that particular scheme started in 2017, yeah, 2016-17. For these 8 years, India invested a lot. The government invested a lot in phone manufacturing, PLIs, and that ushered a new industry out of India, right? A lot of people got hired, a lot of exports started happening, and good things happened. However, now India is pulling the plug on PLI as far as phone manufacturing is considered, because you can't keep incentivizing an industry forever, right? So now the phone makers are thinking, "Ooh, are we getting screwed here? What do we do? What do we do? Should we, whatever money we were getting from the government as incentives, should we charge it from the customers?" And so on and so forth. So that is a particular, but they can't charge it, right? Because customers are already not buying phones. So what do? Do we take that margin hit? That margin hit should be around a few percentage points, and these people operate on very thin margins. So that is going on. That's pretty tough right now for the phone manufacturers. You know, Dixon's earnings forecast has been cut, but this is necessary. This essentially necessitates efficiency, innovation, and so on and so forth. Once an industry gets used to government free money, it isn't forced to invent, to innovate, to grow, to be more efficient. But when that happens, you know, when the government says, okay, enough of free money, now you're on your own, that's when some real stuff happens. So that's what's going to happen in the phone manufacturing play now. Moving on. Cipla is also looking at entering the obesity drug market, the semaglutide, the GLP. This is going to be, this is not a good news, man. You know, it's not good news. Anyway, moving on. Stellantis looks to rev up India investments to increase market share. Now, Stellantis is the conglomerate, or let's say house of brands, as far as automotive play is considered. So Stellantis houses Fiat, it houses Citroen, it houses Chrysler, and so on. But in India they just have a 1%, less than 1% market share, right? Fiat, Chrysler, everything is now a part of Stellantis. Jeep is Fiat. Mr. Rajat Mittal says. Rajat Mittal, is that my brother? Yeah, I guess it is. Hello, bhai. Yeah, I hope they don't run away, says Mr. Patil. You're right, Mr. Patil. Oh yeah, that's my brother. Hi, bhai. Hope you have a beautiful day. So Stellantis has just 1% share. Its dealer network is little, and it's now looking to rev up India's investments. It wants to fight, which is great news for India, and I hope it turns out to be great news for Stellantis. I personally love Fiat. Jeep is a great product, I think. So that is happening, and right now Ford is also talking about some sort of return to India, right? Those news, that kind of news is essentially looking at, but That rumor hasn't really fructified as of now, but it might. So you never know. You never know. We also won't talk about the Air India debacle, the flight crash, because that just makes us sad, right? We know what happened. We all know what basically might have happened, but we are supposed to ignore that and we are supposed to listen to everything. It's just very sad. But anyway, moving on. Moving on. NLC. NLC India is looking at 1.25 lakh crore capex by 2030. NLC is betting on the renewable energy play. 1.25 lakh crore. How much is that in dollars? 1.25 lakh crore. 1 lakh crore is 12 to 14 billion dollars. Quarter of that. So it's basically somewhere around 16 to 18 billion dollars, right? So they are going to invest that in renewable energy, which ties to the story that I told you about, you know, that I told you earlier. So moving on, Taiwan and Vietnam are looking at investing in Indian footwear, non-leather footwear. You wonder why? You wonder why? Why do you think Taiwan and Vietnam are investing in India in the footwear play? Why do you think? We've talked about this. We've talked about it. Just write one word and that'll be great. Just write one word, right? You gotta write one word and I'll understand. To export tariffs. A, Mr. Patil. A. Exactly. No more fixed highway targets. States can prioritize projects. Mr. Tiwari, you're right. Mr. Tiwari, you're right. So, Indian highway manufacturing, let's say, I'm saying manufacturing, highway building, that particular bit has been speeding up, right? But that has slowed down lately because of our high base and because we've been doing so much. Now, what we are trying to do, what the government is trying to do, is play with the regulatory bit a bit, right? Earlier, it used to give some fixed targets to states as far as making this is considered. Let's say project A, project B, project C, all lined up one after the other. So it used to be a sequential play, right? You've got to execute this. Now every project is different in terms of difficulty and in terms of land acquisition, in terms of all the nitty gritties of these projects are considered, right? It's very complicated. Now, what the central government is trying to do is that it's giving them floating targets. Like A, B, C, you don't have to do it in sequence. Pick one and go for it, right? So essentially clever ways of moving the industry forward, the highway targets, highway creation, building, capex. This is very smart and this should have been done earlier. But the problem is with good moves in life, in business, in governance, in everywhere, whenever something good is done, our question is not, our thought is not, oh, this is great. Our question is, why didn't you do it earlier? Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that whenever we are looking at something very good, like a great move, right? The question isn't that, hey, why are this is so awesome, this is great. The thought is always, why didn't we do this earlier? Like even in life, right? Even in business decisions, why didn't we do this earlier? That's sort of so this is what people are gonna say, right? Indian smartphone manufacturing was such a good thing. Why didn't you do this earlier? Jhandan was such a good thing. Why didn't you do this earlier? Right? UPI was such a good thing. Why didn't you do this earlier? And so on. So, and that's always a very, very good problem to have. Like you do such good things one after the other that people are asking, why didn't you do this earlier? Like the IT refunds thing, right? Why didn't you do this earlier? Anyway, moving on. Right now, electronics and pharma corner 70% of FY25 PLI disbursement. PLI production linked incentives, as we talked about. Electronics and pharma take roughly 70%. Now government is coming down on the PLIs for smartphone manufacturing. That means it's coming down on the smartphone electronics bit. It's going to transfer that to someplace else because Once you conquer one area, let's say you conquer the smartphone player, this is going good. You now have to focus on other things, right? So that split we know about. PSBs are exploring joint ventures. That's okay. That's okay. Nifty likely to stay weak, say analysts. You know, with cautious short-term outlook, weak global cues, disappointing earnings, and so on and so forth. So when big bellwether companies like TCS disappoint, okay, or let's say when it becomes difficult, the outlook becomes difficult of those big companies, the entire market sort of looks down, right? So let's say Nvidia is a $4 trillion market cap company. Okay, what if 20% Nvidia goes down 20%? The entire US market would go down, right? Because with Nvidia, a lot of sentiment would go down. So at the moment, that's supposedly what's happening. People are thinking that this particular uh, market might just be looking at some rest at the moment. Now there's another factor of this rest. What could be that? Can viewers of Thinkers Frequency guess? It is something to do with SEBI clamping down on somebody. Do you think what can be the reason? Can you just write one word, or it's two words, or just write two letters and we'll be fine? Do you remember that? Do you remember that? I can't give more hints, right? So it's basically Jane Street, right? Jane Street went out, and FNO trade volume JS says say Mr. Patil and Mr. Tiwari. You're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. FNO trade volumes have slumped 20%. 20%. They are saying we're not sure if it's because of JS, but it could be. Now, are we sure that it's because of JS? Yes, we are sure. We don't know. We don't need to there's a idiom for that. There's an idiom for that, right? We don't need to. Hindi, we know the Hindi version of it, right? Bal ki khal. But there's an English idiom for that we don't need to try and find the needle among the haystack. It's pretty clear to us. It's Jane Street. 20% volume decrease. Suddenly, 20%. And right now, it's just Jane Street. They have not targeted Citadel. They've not targeted Millennium. They've not targeted a lot of these people, right? So once these people go out, I think the FNO trades will be like half the volumes. And that's obviously going to hurt the market, right? Speaking of not hurt, speaking of something good, foreign investors have booked close to 100 billion profits from India bets in 2024-2025. $100 billion. Now this is great for foreign investors who could take the money out, and in the short term it might seem like a bad news for India, right? So much of money outflow because these people invested, now they take out, and good for them, but bad for markets, right? No. If these people are basically being able to book profits, not just notional profits but real cash, it essentially proves that India is a great market, which will be great news. In 2019-20, this number was repatriation number, the money that they took out, $50 billion. Right now it's $100 billion. So from 2020 to 25, 5 years, it's essentially doubled. 5 years and the repatriation amount has doubled, right? That's awesome for the foreign guys. That proves that India is a great market, right? Moving on. Subprime lending by PSB rising on the back of government guarantees. Well, that doesn't sound like good news, right? They're essentially looking at giving loans to MSMEs, but a lot of those loans are classified as subprime. But these loans are very important. As you know, the Mudra loans were very important, right? And they were expected to have a very high default rate, but that didn't happen. The loan provisioning was very tight, very profitable for everybody. And then when small businesses, like I gave you the example of Shambhu Bhaiya, right? The kabadi business owner. Now he took a mudra loan and he set up a confectionery, a proper perchune setup along with the kabadi setup, and he's like a tycoon right now. So that's very nice. And these loans are basically being guaranteed by the government now, that give loans to these small and medium businesses, micro, small and medium businesses, and PSBs are giving that. So let's see what that leads to. By the way, speaking of loans, Nod for voluntary gold pledge may give a boost to micro and agri sector lending. So they are essentially saying that people can pledge their gold for agri and micro sector lending. Now we've talked a lot about this. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know. Muthoot Finance Gold loan AUM, asset under management, is looking at like 2 lakh crores, right? A lot of gold loans are happening, and Indian households have a lot of gold. You know the amount of gold Indian households have? It's greater than the gold with top 10 reserve banks put together. So that's how much gold Indian households have. So Indian women, they've been very, very smart. Indian families have been very, very smart when they stocked up on gold, because with geopolitical risks and everything, gold becomes very, very important, right? So that gold is being used for loans nowadays, a lot of it, and that RBI has given, that you can pledge loans to get sort of, uh, you know, it would not be considered a collateral free lending now. So priority lending, it will help priority lending essentially as far as gold pledge is considered. So this is great news, and it's easy to recover gold loans if even if they go bad, even if a loan turns into a bad loan. Gold, since prices are going up of gold, you can recover a lot of that bad loan by the gold. So it turns out well for the bank, it turns out well for the financial institution, and it most likely turns out well for the person who's pledging the gold, because he gets cash and then he fights to get that gold back because gold is so important, and so on and so forth. So it's like a new blue ocean as far as the whole uh, you know loan market is considered in India. Moving on, US copper tariff may impact India's electronics and chip plants. Now, a very good question to ask is, why should in US copper tariff plan hurt the India uh, semiconductor plan? Why would that be the case? Can you guess? Let's say if US was importing a lot of copper, India would also have to be importing a lot of copper or making a lot of copper, right? To make its own semiconductor chips, because we are also trying to make semiconductor chips, right? Now the question is, US made chips, they are not going to use somebody else's copper. Now that copper could come to India, that copper could come to China, right? Why would it hurt India is the question. It shouldn't hurt India. In fact, if US gives like a 50% tariff on copper and start making its own copper, the price of copper imports for India should decrease, which should actually help the Indian semiconductor mission, right? But in the short term, it leads to some supply chain shocks, which is what these people are talking about. But in the long run, it should be a good news. Moving on. Tata Tech leans on SDV on auto companies code push. Product engineering digital services firm Tata is increasing its focus on software defined vehicle. Now, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know software defined vehicle. Now, Tata Tech is leaning on it. Why it is? Why do you think Tata Tech and other Indian companies have started to lean on SDVs, that software defined vehicles? One word. Just give me one word, folks. Why do you think that is happening? Why do you think that is happening? Software defined vehicles. Why are they so important? China. Because China essentially is leading that market, right? And China has leapfrogged everybody so much that everybody has to play catch up. And so Tech is leading on. So the usual car market is not growing, as we talked about, but the EV car market is growing much, right? Very much. At the moment, we discussed this yesterday, I guess. Indian EV sales market share is 2.5%, but it's supposed to be like 4%, 5% in just a few years, right? That means that EV market is growing faster than the rest of the market, which means that the software defined vehicles are going to grow faster, which is essentially a direct implication of whatever China has been doing. So China was the word, EV was another word. Moving on, why is China not working to take over IT services industry? Well, Mr. Patil, every other thing they are already working on. So, Mr. Patil, IT services industry, they're not really worried about the IT services industry because they have the IT product industry in their hand right now. Why India turned out to be an IT services powerhouse was because we couldn't make products, right? We went into the service play, we learned English, while China learned to manufacture things. And China made its own internet companies. So China banned Facebook, banned YouTube, banned Google, banned everything. And now they have like their Youku and they have their own everything, right? They have everything now. So China doesn't need the IT service industry, which is falling anyway. Now, China went out with DeepSeek, right? So, China is giving US the creeps as far as software tech industry is considered, the product tech. So, they are not interested in the $280 billion IT services industry, which thankfully Indians could leap onto, right? Moving on. Meta acquires voice AI firm Play AI for tech. Meta is looking at a lot of, you know, a lot of acquisitions. Scalar $15 billion, and now this Play AI thing, and so on and so forth. Meta is really looking at the AI boom because it's not a question of growth, it's a question of survival. And we discussed this yesterday, right? So I won't repeat myself. Quick commerce market size to grow, sure. Moving on, India inks deal with fertilizer, Saudi Arabia, Saudico, as we discussed, and singer Akon's failed futuristic city turn into a $1 billion resort. So Akon, that smack that all on the floor, smack that guy, he had dreams. He had big dreams. He also did that Chamak Chalo song, right, with Bollywood. So at the few years ago, he was really hot, right, really hot. So his dreams were even bigger. He wanted to have essentially a city. He wanted to build a city called Akon City in his African country, right? So he was basically building this city in Senegal, and it was a $6 billion project which he was trying to bring to life, modeled on, let's say, Dubai and other places. Unfortunately, that project has died because Senegal is probably not UAE, and it's really hard to make a city. The network effects are very hard to create and preserve. So that is now going to be just a resort. It's going to be a $1 billion resort. That's sad. And Akon actually gave up on his musical limelight to work on this particular thing. Unfortunately, couldn't happen. And the country was also, his home country Senegal, they were also bullish on it. That look at this pop star, he's doing so well for us. This is so nice. Unfortunately, all good intentions don't lead to outcomes, right? With that, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the 50th episode of Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis. Right before we punch in, it's 9 a.m. and we've got to punch in. I wish you a beautiful day, personally and professionally. I have a request and I have a question to ask before I go. How do we grow this thing? Today started on time, ended on time. Amazing. Thank you, Mr. Patil. I have a question and a request. How do we grow this thing? Right? this is great. I'm growing knowledge wise, we are growing knowledge wise, we are growing conceptually, we are doing a lot of great work, and it's phenomenal. The growth, the intellectual growth, and the routine, the setting up of this beautiful routine is great. But how do we grow the audience? I'm not sure, you know. So if you could help me with that, it'll be amazing. So with that, thank you so much. See you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully. Bye bye.